All right, thanks everybody for joining us for today's session. I think we still have some people joining the room, so I'll give about 30 seconds or so for everybody to get on the line. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So thank you everyone for joining us for today's session. If this is your first Torque Talk and you're not familiar with these sessions, we hold these once every month to give a brief demo of our Torque platform focused on one specific use case. Today's session will show how our users leverage AI to simplify and accelerate DevOps engineering, infrastructure operations, anything related to delivering environments across the software pipeline. Before we start, I also want to remind everyone that this is an interactive session. We have a Q&A here. It's open at the end of the session after we complete the demo. We will take a few minutes to answer any questions you have, so please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A at any time during the session. Today, presenting, we have David Ben-Shabat, also known around here as DBS. He is Quali's head of R&D, so if you have any questions about Torque, he can definitely answer them. So I'm going to hand it off to DBS to kick things off for us.
Hey, thanks, Colin. Thanks for having me again. Actually, always exciting and always fun talking about what we're building, how can we help. So yeah, today talk focus will be around how we're leveraging AI inside Torque, the product. I'm gonna make maybe 5 to 10 minutes kind of overview of what Torque is, what we do, and then maybe a 5 to 10 minutes demo on how it actually looks like within the product. Yeah, and feel free to post questions if you have any in the chat. So I'm going to start with, why we're here, right? So essentially, we want to solve a problem. We want to make sure that you can practice platform engineering to the fullest with zero friction, make sure that infrastructure is accessible to whoever needs access to it without the overhead of, who is available to do what, how much skills do you need in order to achieve a certain task. How can you, I would say, make acceleration to all the development areas in the product or even in the company, right? In some cases, it's devs need access to infrastructure to deploy application. In others, it's just sales need to get access to some demo environments. So you can imagine how much burden you have as a DevOps or as a platform engineer in your organization, where everyone is relied on you to have everything kind of spun up and ready to go and in good shape, right? So this is basically what we want to help with, and this is what Torque was built for, to accelerate and orchestrate infrastructure and service providing, provisioning to provide you with access, easy access and governed one also. So as I said, we always looked at the world as, the experts are not a lot, right? You don't have a lot of them. And as it turns out, many need from them because they're the only one who can provide, let's say, environments or services in the context of the organization, right? They know the intrinsics of what need to be spun up, what in what way in terms of, cost, even security aspect. So they have a lot to carry on their shoulders. And as it turns out, there is a line to get access to what they can provide to you in terms of infrastructure. So what we want to provide is to be able to basically eliminate that bottleneck of waiting for something to happen, right? Of opening a ticket and just waiting for it for a few weeks. So how do we do that? Essentially, we're providing an experience for end user to self-serve themselves and to consume blueprints that are well architectured and designed by those infrastructure experts. And what had changed recently is that we're not just helping the customers of whoever want access to infrastructure, but we're also helping very much the experts themselves to make more with less by just leveraging AI. So, and again, this is the focus of the talk. So I'm going to show you how we're doing it. Before that, I can say that just to put some context and something in front of us in terms of how usually you can look at a path on to get to a success, so to speak, or to provide that self-service. It usually starts with those professionals creating and curating some infra as code, right? Some automation that they wrote. And now they want to provide access to it to other stakeholders that need access to it. So instead of letting them try to figure it out on how to run Kubernetes or Terraforms, what you want to do is to provide them with a blueprint, a construct that they can keep just consuming. So how do you build blueprints out of IAC? This is what Torque does. Later on, to make it kind of reusable and self-serve, how do you publish it to a self-service catalog? And later on, how do you operate on top, right? You have a life cycle that you need to manage of either a simple network compute, like a VM, or even later on a cluster. And also up the stack up until the application level as well. So this is what we're going to see. So we're going to start with the IAC, right? And when I say we're going to start with the IAC, this is the first thing that Torque helps you to do. It helps you discover those IAC lying around, these automation in your different repositories. It also discover resources in the cloud and help you codify them into a standard IAC. So whether you're in the beginning of the journey on how to codify your cloud, or you already have like brownfield scenario where resources are already provisioned, it's not in a consistent and standard way, how do you consolidate that into a standard and consistent automation, and later on provide it as a building block, as a blueprint later on. So this is where the journey starts, and this is what we're gonna see. In the context of how do we infuse AI in the product, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's the DevOps expert, the platform engineers, or even end users, devs, product sales, or even machines themselves, like agents themselves. They interact with Torque in a way that is now kind of standard, I would say, or beginning of a standard between agents, right? So Torque provides a list of agents that are running under the hood to basically achieve an outcome. They serve in some way a role, a function for you to consult, to work with, to make sure that you're getting the expert in that domain. But altogether, they're driving an outcome, which is how to provide the right service with the right infrastructure in a responsible way, right? So today we're going to see a few examples of, how the agent of the documentation and the internal even organization documentation can come to, help users orient and find their way around really quickly. We're going to see maybe how we can design a blueprint using an agent of that sort that is an expert on how to ask you the right questions and how to look at how everything works in the organization, and then look at what is available for you to consume and help you build out your desired blueprint. And maybe a little bit about troubleshooting and how that is kind of infused in the product. So with that said, let's jump to a demo. I think I'm good on time, so that's a good thing right now. So I'm sharing my screen now, my entire desktop. And I was, you know, I thought, where should I start? And I decided to start with this, which is, this is the outcome. This is the environment. This is what eventually manage the life cycle of different resources. And that will be the view of you as a platform engineer, as an administrator, to manage that life cycle. We call that environment, right? You can see that it consists of a few grains, we call them, basically those steps that we orchestrate. We provide kind of activity monitoring around that, some instructions on how to operate it, workflows, logging, updates, drift detection, everything in kind of one place for you to do not just day zero, but up until day n, how can we operate on top? And this is important because later on, what you will do is probably going to publish that downstream for others to consume and build upon. So it's kind of a piece of a puzzle, one piece of the stack that now is easy to consume and reuse. Now, how do you get to this point? You connect your automation, right? So Torque will discover the different pieces and try to help you build that blueprint. Now, you can do it yourself. You can go ahead and click here and create a blueprint. What does that mean? It means that you will be able to start your automation journey just by dragging and dropping existing infrastructure as code component to our canvas. But we can do better. When I say we can do better, AI can do better, right? So this is where one piece of AI is coming into play. You can always go to the Cloud Copilot, right? And start, talking to it, as you will do very intuitively. So what do you want to change in this blueprint? So right now, help me deploy VPC for that instance. Now, when it comes to what the Copilot can offer you, it can offer you to, to have a very templated approach, or a default approach where everything is already set. So I'm going to say, leave that to me to decide later, right? And this is how we basically help our platform engineers to start building blueprints with their own Copilot that will eventually, you will be able to test it out, do the cycles. Also, we have an agent for that as well, to kind of test it out for you, remediate whatever issues you have, maybe can give you some pointers on security and roles and whatever. But this is maybe a double click that we need to do. But eventually you have this now building block that you can reuse. You can provide it with a name, a region, an agent. And that is all, I would say, based on your existing automation. We can provide that automation out of the box if needed, but as it turns out, you already work so hard on curating the right way of provisioning in your organization, so why not leveraging that? You can always do stuff like add an AWS RDS. I always forget the please. I know I should write please, but yeah. So I'm going to go with the default. I'm going to say yes. Now, once you do that, eventually, again, component will be added and you will be able to run your cycles and tests. And I think that at least kind of covers on how do you get started, right? How can you, you can ask it to make sure to use the VPC as dependencies. You can go ahead and interact with those components yourselves, make sure that the inputs are part of, I would say, whatever output that the previous component did, and so on and so forth. Now, once you're happy with that, you can always go ahead and publish it as self-service. A self-service might eventually look something like that. It can be very simple, like, yes, I want an AWS EC2, or I want an OpenShift container, or I want just a simple VPC or a certificate. But it can also be very comprehensive. I'm saying very comprehensive in a way that you can provide full service, right? And a full service might look like this. And this is a very advanced catalog, right, of different services that you can provide to curated group of people in a space. And let's assume that they consuming those services, and you're now need to operate on top. So you can have a list of who provisioned what and when. Also, you can have the one that you need to basically interact with and help with. So for example, this environment was, I don't know, it failed on termination. So now we need to check out why. So we can go to the different components, open the logs, and this is another place where we kind of involve AI basically in troubleshooting and try to understand how to resolve with a simple step-by-step issues in the product. So this is kind of, again, one aspect on how do we infuse AI and some of the power there. I'm assuming that in any way you're walking around a product, you will have questions. And those questions can be answered by our co-pilot that was always kind of next to you, right? So you can ask it from the documentation, you can ask it to do stuff, you can ask it to write policies on your behalf in the context that you're in. So that kind of complete maybe the experience of someone that kind of follow you around as a companion, try to help you out, but also provide the right solution when you need it and cut the time to value at the end of the day. Now, I would tie again everything with this view, where we started with something like that, moved to something very simple, but Torque would like to help you also accelerate your AI adoption, right? So not just by using AI in the product, but also deploying it. So I know that in many cases, you would like to start by just provisioning a cluster and make it available for others to start deploying maybe some models for like embedding models or just trying to develop your agentic application using some AI as a service later on, not just by embedding models, for example, right? So how do you do that? So you know how to provision clusters, that is for sure. Once you provision a cluster, you can see and manage all of them in a single place, which is awesome. Now, you can also publish those clusters for others to use. And later on, developers that actually would like to start building a agentic application, they can now go ahead, launch some of the blueprints that are kind of application-centric, but they can now leverage and reuse those infrastructure pieces that you published downstream for them. So that kind of ties everything up. I think that for now, it's a good place to stop and get some questions.
Yes, that was great. Thank you, DBS. We did have a few questions come through. As a reminder to everybody on the line, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them and we'll try to make some time for that. When you first showed the live environment, you mentioned infrastructure. We had a question come in around that, around leveraging users IAC. Sounds like someone wants to know how you leverage IAC. I think it might help if you show the discovery capability.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. So when we say that we use IAC, going back to the portal that we had, the infra one, everything starts with just connecting repositories, right? We can also again point to a cloud and discover resources and start from there. An example of that might look like this. Right, so you can point to a target cloud. We can list the resources, and now you can start ingesting those as code, right? So you can select different components that are unmanaged and are not consistent. Once you do that, you can curate them and basically have them running as a managed environment, or just codify them and put them in a repo. But once you have the repo, you can now connect. We will discover those IAC, whether those are Ansibles or CloudFormation or Helm. We're trying to abstract that all completely for you, so you can focus on just building those, I would say, reusable building block, and later on expose them for blueprinting or services. So it doesn't really matter if you need to manage a lifecycle that is starts with Terraform as day zero provisioner, later on moving to Ansible as kind of config management or patching, later on deploying application using Helm or Kubernetes, and finally have some scripting. So eventually, like shells, Bash, whatever, Python, you can connect and kind of do the day two on top. Those resources actually eventually comes together in the inventory automation, where you can always go and check out like who is using what and where and how, kind of plan better the updates and understand the impact of a change. So that is also part of the product still, so.
Perfect. And we just got another question while you were showing that, asking what if they don't have IAC? I think you could show some functionality that could help there.
Oh yeah. So I kind of briefly showed that, but it really doesn't matter which cloud you have. We can discover the inventory. I sometimes refer to it as the CMDB of the cloud, but essentially it helps you kind of understand the level of risk, how let's say operational ready you are, and how you can start building the right and curate the right projects and make them consistent and governed, right? Torque comes with a suite of governance capabilities, such as multi-tenancy and policies and consumption driven policies, reporting, etc. So everything starts with looking at the resources and codify them. Once you do that, that is done using, again, one of our agents. You can later on, just manage environments using IAC in a standard way.
Perfect. Thank you for going into a little more depth on that. Earlier on in the session, we also got a question asking if Torque supports OPA, Open Policy Agent.
Yes. So Torque comes with, I would say, out-of-the-box integration with OPA in the form of many already kind of standard policies that are part of the community. Some were kind of suggested by other customers, but altogether, the answer is yes. You don't have to know OPA. It's just an open and standard way of interacting and plugging policies now to existing workflows and environments. We do offer, again, out-of-the-box ones, be able to customize them to your need and make sure that you're getting alert or approvals depending on that policies in the product. I maybe, again, I have to say that we also provide the assist of agent to look at your infrastructure configuration, help you kind of draft your own OPA, and make sure that you're ready to go, even lowering the bar even more.
Okay, and the final question we have in here, if anybody has any others, please feel free to submit them, and we'll make a few minutes to answer that. But the last question we have here was about Jenkins support, asking if environments integrate with Jenkins.
Right. So Torque comes with, I would say, a complete set of integrations. I like to think of, wait a minute, sorry, community. Yeah, I'd like to think of integration right now as kind of RIP integrations because of the rise of MCPs. So Torque does have an MCP that can help you kind of eliminate the need of specific integration, make sure that you're working within your IDE and leveraging the power, or let's say working in a standard way by using Torque and Quali as your go-to outcome-driven agent will all come to, infrastructure and environments as a service. So there are plugins, also in the form of that.
Okay, it looks like that's all we have today. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you, DBS, for presenting today. This was really helpful. And thank you to Corey, Ed, and everyone else on the back end who helped to plan and make this happen today. If you have any more questions or want to learn more, please visit quali.com. You can also get a hands-on view of Torque through the Quali Torque Playground. So if you visit quali.com and visit Playground, you can essentially navigate and launch actual environments using Torque. It's a really good experience, really good way to get familiar with the product. Thank you again to everybody and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.